Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another Facebook Live. My name is Rachel, and I am an environmental educator here at Sea Turtle Inc. Sea Turtle Inc. is a nonprofit organization and Sea Turtle Hospital in South Padre Island, Texas. Now, as usual, let us know where you're tuning in from. We always love to see where our viewers are tuning in from. It's really interesting to see all the places in the United States as well as the world. But today we're going to be doing a 2020 patient breakdown. So I'm going to be talking about the numbers, what were the common reasons for stranding. And so if you have any questions as I'm talking about these numbers, please type them into the comments below and I'll be happy to answer your questions. After I go through some of these numbers, I'm actually going to walk around the hospital and show you some of our patients. We actually have 34 patients now. 34 patients in our hospital. That is quite a lot of patients for us. So, as I said, any questions you might have, type them into the comments below. So for 2020, we had 73 live strandings. That just means that we had 73 patients come into our hospital. Now for 2019, it was 85, not including the cold stun turtles that we received. And so, out of those 73, 20 of them were cold stun Kemp's Ridleys. So without those 20 cold stun Kemp's Ridleys, we would have only had 53 turtles. Now those cold stun Kemp's Ridleys are still here at our hospital. If you've been tuning into our videos, you'll probably remember that we shared their story. They actually arrived here by airplane. They had a major cold stranding event up in the Cape Cod area, and so they needed help from other sea turtle hospitals, and we have 20 patients currently that we are treating. The second common reason for stranding that we had here for 2020 were debilitated turtles. Now this is just a generalized term for poor state of health, right? So usually these patients were lethargic. There's not one identifying factor that we can say that caused them to be debilitated, but that's kind of how we categorize them here at our hospital. Then the third major cause for stranding, which is a really interesting one, is entanglement. So we had 12 entangled sea turtles come into our hospital for 2020. So that was the third major cause of stranding. And then we have an unknown cause. So this is usually just a turtle that comes in and we can't really identify what was wrong with them. They're not really debilitated. They're not really lethargic. So we kind of categorize it as an unknown cause. Usually those patients are only here for like 2 weeks and then we release them back to the wild. The next common cause for stranding were sea turtles that were actually stuck in the rocks at the jetties. The jetties are those rock formations that we have built on either end of our island. Sea turtles get stuck in those rocks because they go there to eat. Algae grows all over those rocks and they love algae. So then when the tide goes out or maybe after a storm, they'll get stuck in those rocks. Now what's really interesting is that we only had 8 sea turtles stuck in the rocks for 2020. But in 2019, as I mentioned, we had 85 patients and 30 out of the 85 that year were stuck in the rocks. So we had a pretty dramatic drop in sea turtles stuck in the rocks at the jetties. So kind of interesting to think about. And then another major cause for stranding for this past year were sea turtles that were called in because they were hooked. So we had 5 hooked sea turtles come into our hospital. And then the last category of common strandings that we saw here were sea turtles that were actually attacked by a predator. We only had 2 predator-attacked turtles for 2020. So that's kind of a breakdown of the numbers and the common injuries that we did see. I do want to hit one last point with those numbers. If you're familiar with sea turtle species, there are 5 sea turtle species in the Gulf of Mexico, and we have seen all 5 of those come through our hospital, but not for 2020. So I want to give you just a quick breakdown of the species. But before I do that, I want you to type into the comments below, what is your favorite sea turtle species? I would love to hear from you all. Maybe it's the leatherback, maybe loggerheads, Atlantic greens, hawksbills, flatbacks. Let me know what your favorite species is. So for us, out of those 73 live strandings, 47 of them were green. So 47 out of the 73 were Atlantic green sea turtles. Those are pretty common numbers for us because we typically see that species here in our hospital. That's the primary species we get, and that's because of our bay. Our bay is shallow, has a ton of seagrass, so these juvenile Atlantic green sea turtles like to migrate here. Mary is asking if we can get these stats somewhere. I just kind of read them off, so if you want to write them down for just kind of your own personal use. We will also be updating our website. We usually have our numbers up on there, so I'm sure our marketing director will work on updating the numbers on our website. Thank you. And then the next common species that we had, so we had mostly Atlantic greens, and then we had 24 Kemp's Ridleys. So 20 of those Kemp's Ridleys were the ones that were flown here. The other 4 were Kemp's Ridleys that actually washed up here on the beach. Then we had 2 loggerhead sea turtles. So other than that, we had no hawksbills or leatherbacks actually strand here on our beach for 2020. So thank you so much for tuning in for those numbers. I know that was a lot of numbers that I just read off, but I think it's kind of interesting to see the breakdown, and it really reveals what the common causes for strandings are. So now that I've kind of talked about 2020, I want to show you some of our current patients. Let me put my glasses on here. So these 3 are actually 3 cold stunned sea turtles. So if you live around here, you probably know we just had a cold front come in. So we didn't get a major cold stranding event, luckily, but these 3 were brought in due to being cold stunned. Being cold stunned basically means that their bodies go into a state of shock from that rapid temperature drop, and it causes them to float up. They'll usually not be responsive. You'll see these 3 little guys. They almost look like they're sleeping. They're just kind of coming out of that cold stunned state. Now, if I walk over here to our other patients, you'll notice, for example, Bermuda is a little more active. These that we have here are actually receiving eye drops from our vet tech. Our vet tech, Nina, is in here while I'm chatting, just doing her work for the morning. She's got a lot of duties, and that includes starting patient care. This is another one of our patients. His name is Justice. You'll notice Justice actually has a skull fracture. So it's a pretty severe skull fracture. We're treating him for that injury. He also has the disease that causes tumors to grow all over his body. That's fibropapillomatosis. And so he will be treated for both of those things. And so now that we kind of saw what's going on in the clinic, let me walk you out to the tanks so you can see some of the patients that are out in the tanks. Now, the reason that patients would still be in the clinic would just be because upon arrival, we have to kind of wait for certain things to happen. For example, we have to run all their tests, their blood work, x-rays, that sort of thing. And if they haven't pooped, we actually have to wait for them to poop. I know it's kind of gross to talk about, but we have to check their poop for parasites. And so until they poop, they're not really cleared to go back out into one of our clinic tanks because we don't want them to spread parasites around our hospital. Now, because it is still a little bit chilly, some of our tanks are covered. Let me see if there are actually some patients in here. So these are some of our patients that actually have fibropapillomatosis. You saw quite a few of them actually in the clinic. That's because Nina, our vet tech, was administering eye drops here in the morning. But you can see some of the other patients in here. This is Zodiac. Zodiac has had tumor removal surgery, and he's recovering from that. And then we have another patient back there. I believe that's Dasher back there, but it's a little bit difficult to see. Let me see if anyone has asked any questions. Let's see what we got. Some of you expressing concern for boaters out. Yes, it is important if you're going to be out on a boat, especially in our bay, that you keep an eye out for sea turtles. Sea turtles have lungs just like you and I do, so they need a surface to breathe, right? And if you're going a little bit too fast, it's going to be very difficult to move out of the way when one of their heads pops up to take a breath. Mary said she saw a dead green floating in South Bay last week. If you do see a dead turtle, whether it be washed up out on the beach, you can actually give our stranding phone number a call. We can actually place that in the comments so you know which number to call just to report it, because we do have to report and document all the sea turtles that strand here on our island, whether they be dead or alive. Nicole is asking how Jit is. I can actually show you. Jit is doing very well. He's actually right here. He just received his eye drops. This is Jit. You'll see we actually write the patient name with a little paint marker. We do remove that before we release them. Kara asked if our tanks are heated during cold weather. Yes, they are. Our tanks are heated, but since they're pretty shallow systems, if it's cold, that temperature can still change pretty quickly, and it puts a lot of stress on that system. So we do cover them with tarps to make sure that they're not losing all of that heat, because we don't want them to cold stone while they're here at our hospital. Great question. If I did miss any of your questions, I can actually come back in just a little bit and answer any more questions that I missed. Or if you're watching this not in real time, I'll be happy to answer your questions. I'll give you one last look here at the clinic before I go. You'll see Nina, our vet tech and hospital manager, is working on food prep. So the vet department every single day has to prep all the food for all of our animals here at the facility. She's working on some veggies right now. Looks like she's chopping up some bell pepper for Jerry, our resident sea turtle. So our clinic is very full right now. Our vet staff is busy with a lot of patients. As I mentioned, we have 34 patients right now. If you'd like to support us by either coming to our facility, by watching this video, you're supporting us and educating yourself. So thank you so much for that. If you'd like to adopt any of these patients, we have symbolic sea turtle adoptions available on our website. If you actually want to name one of the Chems Ridley sea turtles we have, that is an adoption package that we are offering right now. And I do see one last question here. Mary's asking if we fully transitioned to the new place or is the old hospital still there. So I am currently in our old hospital. Our new buildings are educational complex, so that will house our 5 resident sea turtles, where our museum, gift shop, restrooms are, and where we do our amphitheater presentations. The hospital is fully just here to serve our patients, and so we are working on renovating the hospital side as well. If you're interested in supporting that campaign, all of that will be available in the comments and our website. Thank you so much for your questions. All right, I'm going to go head out to work. I have to get ready here for opening. If you're coming to visit us today or sometime soon, I'll be happy to meet you. If not, thank you so much for tuning in for this virtual experience. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.